She believed she could easily defeat the human warrior. Then the alien woman realized she was wrong. Veilrix arrived on the human station the way a storm arrived on an empty plain, fast, loud, and certain that nothing could stand in its path. The docking bay doors opened with a slow, heavy hiss. Cold white lights shone across metal floors polished to a mirror shine. Rows of humans in dark uniforms watched in silence. Their faces were calm, their posture straight, their hands still. They did not bow. They did not cheer, they simply observed. Veilrix noticed that first. On Cathari worlds, a high-ranked warrior did not enter a room without reaction. There would be chants, there would be respectful gestures, there would be fear hidden or open. It was natural, it was correct. But here, in the heart of a human station orbiting the edge of neutral space, there was only quiet attention. Veilrix's armor clicked softly as she walked forward. It was sleek and sharp, made from layered plates that could stop blades and scatter low-energy shots. The surface reflected the lights in pale lines, like moonlight on ice. Her helmet was under one arm, revealing her face, smooth, dark skin, high cheekbones, and golden eyes that did not miss details. She saw the human officers watching her. She saw the slight tightening around some eyes. She saw the way a few hands rested close to weapons. They were cautious, not scared. A human diplomat stepped forward. He was tall for a human, but still smaller than Veilrix by half a head. His uniform was simple, no heavy jewels. No bright metals, only a small symbol on his chest and a thin device on his wrist. "Champion Veilrix," he said, speaking clearly. "Welcome to Conquered Station. I am Envoy Halden." Veilrix tilted her head just enough to be polite. "Envoy Halden. I accept your station's air and rules for the duration of the challenge." Halden nodded. "We appreciate that." The word appreciate sounded strange in a moment like this. Veilrix did not come to be appreciated. She came to make a point. Behind Halden, a large display screen showed the seal of the Galactic Arbitration Council. Under it were the terms both sides had agreed to, written in clear text for every witness to see. Dispute type, border violation and mining rights. Resolution method, trial by combat, non-lethal preference, lethal allowed if necessary. Condition, if the human champion wins, the humans keep the disputed zone. If Veilrix wins, the Dominion gains it without further negotiation. Veilrix read the terms and felt satisfaction settle into her bones. The Dominion had chosen her because she was the best. She had ended rebellions without needing armies. She had fought in arenas where gravity changed mid-match and where opponents used weapons that burned the air. Humans, by comparison, were new and loud and thin-skinned. Their ships were functional, their soldiers brave, but their bodies were not built for war. That was what the Dominion records said. Veilrix had memorized those records. She trusted them. Halden gestured toward a corridor. "This way, please. The council observers are ready. Your opponent will arrive shortly." "Opponent," Veilrix repeated softly. "Yes." They walked through the station. The corridors were clean. The walls carried signs in several languages. Air vents whispered quietly. Everything here was designed for many species, but the humans had made it simple. Nothing flashy, nothing excessive. Veilrix noticed another detail. Humans in civilian clothing stood behind glass panels and watched her pass. Some held children close. Some whispered. A few smiled, but not in mockery. It looked like hope. Hope, Veilrix thought, was often the final comfort of the weak. The corridor opened into a wide chamber built like a small stadium. It held a raised central platform made of dark alloy. Around it were tiered seats and viewing boxes. Transparent shields shimmered faintly in the air, ready to block stray shots or flying bodies. Council observers sat in the highest box, 3 figures of different species, each with glowing badges on their robes. Sensors and recording drones floated around them like quiet birds. Veilrix stepped toward the arena and stopped at the edge. Her boots made a sharp sound on the metal floor. She looked across the platform and saw the human side seating area. There were officers, medics, and technicians. One seat was empty at the front. That seat was for the human champion. Halden turned slightly. "You may prepare your equipment. The rules allow personal armor, 1 melee weapon, and 1 ranged weapon set to non-lethal levels unless escalation is declared." Veilrix slid her helmet on. The inside display lit up with clean symbols. Her breathing became steady and measured through the suit's filters. "I will not need escalation," she said. Halden's expression did not change. "Understood." Veilrix moved to her assigned prep area. A Cathari support drone hovered beside her, offering a sealed case. Inside was her chosen weapon, a short spear with a smart-edge blade balanced perfectly for her grip. The blade could cut metal under the right force, though it was tuned today to avoid fatal damage, unless she changed the setting. She ran a hand down the shaft, checking the grip texture. Then she clipped a compact energy sidearm to her hip. Across the arena, the human prep area remained quiet. Veilrix's visor sensors swept the room. Heat signatures, heart rates, movement patterns. She could measure fear by a rise in temperature and pulse. There were spikes among the humans, but not the kind she expected. Not panic, more like focus. Then the doors on the far side opened. A single human stepped through, walking with no hurry. He wore simple combat armor, gray and matte with scratches along the chest plate. It was not bulky, it did not glow. No fancy shielding shimmered around him. He carried no visible rifle. At his side hung a sword in a plain sheath, a sword. Veilrix felt surprise flicker in her chest, quickly replaced by amusement. Ceremony weapon, she decided, a human performance for the cameras. The man stopped at the edge of the arena and looked up at the council box, then at Veilrix. He removed his helmet. His hair was dark, cut short. His face showed old scars along the jawline and near one eyebrow. His eyes were a calm brown, not cold, not angry, just steady. Halden spoke quietly into a device. The words appeared on the arena display. Human champion, Captain Elias Rourke, Expeditionary Defense Corps. Veilrix studied the man carefully. He was not huge for a human, but he was built like stone under cloth, compact and strong. His hands were steady. His shoulders were loose, ready. His breathing was slow. The council's central speaker, a tall, thin being with silver skin, stood and raised both hands. "Witnesses," it announced, voice amplified by the arena systems. "This duel is recognized under Council Protocol 9. The champions will fight until surrender, incapacitation, or death. First blood does not end the duel. This is a test of final outcome." Veilrix heard the rules and felt calm settle again. She had heard them many times. The speaker continued. "Champions, step forward and confirm readiness." Veilrix walked onto the platform. Her armor absorbed the small impacts of her steps without sound. She stopped at the center line. Captain Rourke stepped onto the platform as well. His boots sounded heavier than hers. He stopped across from her at the same distance. Up close, Veilrix could see more details. There was faint bruising on one hand, as if he trained without sparring gloves. There was a thin line of healed damage on his neck, old injury, not weakness. His gaze held hers without flinching. Veilrix lifted her spear slightly, the tip angled down in a respectful stance. "I am Veilrix," she said through her suit's translator, "champion of the Cathari Dominion." "I'm Elias Rourke," he replied. His voice was plain. "Captain." "Human Defense Corps." Veilrix tilted her head. "You have chosen a blade from an ancient age." Rourke glanced at the sword at his side. "It works." "That is not an answer," Veilrix said. "It is," he said calmly. "It works for what I need." Veilrix felt a small irritation. Humans were direct to the point of rudeness. Still, rudeness would not help him in the arena. The council speaker asked again. "Champion Veilrix, are you ready?" "I am ready." "Captain Rourke, are you ready?" Rourke placed one hand on the sword's grip. "Ready." The speaker raised a glowing baton. "Combat will begin on the signal." The arena lights dimmed slightly. A soft warning tone sounded. The protective shields shimmered brighter. Drones rose higher for better angles. Veilrix's visor marked Rourke with a target outline. Her systems ran quick predictions based on his body type and stance. The results formed a clean list on the side of her display. Likely reliance on brute force, moderate speed, low reach, compared to spear, high chance of early overcommitment, predicted victory time. Under 90 seconds. Veilrix felt her confidence return fully. Humans were brave, yes, but bravery did not beat skill. Rourke's face showed no fear. That did not concern Veilrix. Sometimes prey froze before the strike. The tone changed. The baton flashed. "Begin!" Veilrix moved first. She did not charge wildly. She stepped in, light and fast, spear tip aimed at Rourke's shoulder. It was a safe opening, non-lethal but sharp enough to shock him, to test his reactions, to set the rhythm. Rourke did not leap back. He turned slightly, letting the spear tip scrape his armor instead of hitting a joint. Then he stepped closer into her reach, faster than her predictions suggested. Veilrix blinked once, just once. She pulled the spear back and spun it into a second strike, lower, targeting his thigh. This was basic: control the legs, control the fight. Rourke shifted again. The spear grazed him, but instead of retreating, he stepped into the pain and lifted his forearm in a short block that made no sense. Too close, too risky. The spear shaft collided with his armored arm. The impact echoed in the arena. Veilrix felt the vibration up to her shoulder. Her suit noted the force. Impact force, unusually high. Rurk did not stumble. He used the contact to slide closer like he wanted the spear locked between them, like he wanted to remove her distance advantage. Veilrix's confidence stayed, but it tightened into something sharper. She jerked the spear free, stepped back, and aimed for his chest plate. Clean thrust. Ended early. Rurk moved in a way her model did not expect. He twisted his body, letting the spear pass close enough that it almost touched him, then reached out and grabbed the shaft, barehanded, without hesitation. For half a second, Veilrix felt shock. Cathari warriors did not grab weapons like that. Smart blades could cut. Even the shaft could carry a charge. It was foolish. Rurk's glove smoked slightly where it touched, and Veilrix saw the edge of pain cross his face. But he held on anyway. He pulled. Veilrix's boot slid a few centimeters on the platform before her suit stabilized her. Her visor flashed a warning: prediction model unstable, data mismatch. Veilrix narrowed her eyes behind the helmet. The human did not look like a hero. He did not roar. He did not boast. He simply pulled the spear toward himself, forcing the fight into close range where her reach meant less. Veilrix adjusted her grip and yanked back, trying to break his hold. Rurk did not let go. His eyes stayed locked on hers, steady as a stone in a river. Veilrix felt for the first time in years a small and uncomfortable thought. He is not reacting like he should. And then her suit delivered a second surprise, quiet, cold, and far more serious. It was a council standard scan that ran automatically for safety and record purposes. It appeared in a small side window in her visor. Opponent combat profile, partial restricted. So why would their combat protocols be classified? Rurk pulled again, harder, and Veilrix felt her stance slip a second time. Around them, the arena stayed silent. No laughter, no smug whispers. Only watchful attention. Veilrix realized the humans were not here to see a brave defeat. They were here because they expected something else. And in that moment, as the human warrior held her spear with burning hands and refused to yield an inch, Veilrix finally understood the first rule she had forgotten. A creature does not survive a death world by being weak. It survives by adapting. And Captain Elias Rurk looked like he had done that his entire life. The arena stayed silent as Veilrix and the human stood locked together, her spear trapped between them. Veilrix twisted her wrists and broke free, stepping back fast. The spear came loose with a sharp sound, and she spun it once to reset her stance. Her training demanded control, and she forced her breathing to slow. Across from her, Captain Elias Rurk flexed his hand. Smoke still curled faintly from his glove, but he did not shake it or look down. His eyes stayed on Veilrix, focused and calm, as if pain were only another signal to be noted and ignored. Veilrix circled him, light on her feet. She adjusted her visor's tracking, feeding it fresh data. The system recalculated his movements, but the numbers did not settle. Probabilities shifted again and again, refusing to lock in. That annoyed her. Most opponents fit patterns. Strong ones pressed forward. Fast ones darted away. Clever ones waited. Rurk did all three, depending on the moment and without hesitation. She lunged again, this time faster. The spear flashed toward his side, then reversed direction mid-strike, aiming for his shoulder joint. It was a classic feint, taught in the first years of Cathari combat schools. Rurk reacted late. For a heartbeat, Veilrix felt triumph. Then the human twisted his body in a way that looked almost careless. The spear slid along his armor, leaving a shallow cut, but missing the joint. At the same time, Rurk stepped forward, not back, closing the distance again. He moved like someone who understood exactly how close he could get without dying. Veilrix struck with the butt of the spear, aiming for his ribs. The impact landed solidly. Rurk grunted and stumbled half a step, but then he grabbed the shaft again, this time with both hands. Veilrix felt the force through her arms. His grip was not refined or elegant. It was stubborn, direct, and powerful. "You should let go," she said through the translator. "That weapon will injure you." Rurk's mouth curved slightly, not a smile, more like acknowledgement. "I know," he said. He yanked hard and drove his shoulder forward at the same time. The move was crude, almost sloppy by Cathari standards, but it carried weight. Veilrix was forced back 2 full steps before she wrenched the spear free and jumped away. Her boots hit the platform hard. Veilrix straightened, chest rising and falling faster now. Not from exhaustion, but from surprise. This human was not fighting to look skilled. He was fighting to win. She glanced toward the council box. The observers were watching closely, their expressions unreadable. Data streamed across their consoles. They had noticed the same thing she had. Veilrix switched tactics. She raised her sidearm and fired a low-energy pulse toward Rurk's legs. The shot was fast, meant to stun and drop him. Most species would fall instantly. Rurk moved the moment he saw the weapon lift. He dove sideways, rolling across the platform. The pulse grazed his calf instead of hitting full on. His legs stiffened, but he kept moving, sliding to one knee and drawing his sword in one smooth motion. The blade came free with a soft, metallic sound. Veilrix studied it for half a second. It was simple steel, reinforced but not exotic. No energy field, no smart edge. Primitive. Rurk rose, sword held low, point angled slightly down. His stance was relaxed but balanced. His eyes flicked briefly to her sidearm, then back to her face. He was reading her. Veilrix fired again, this time at his torso. Rurk raised the sword. The pulse struck the blade and scattered, deflected just enough to avoid a direct hit. The energy still washed over him, and his armor flared as it absorbed part of the charge. He hissed through his teeth but stayed upright. Veilrix felt something shift inside her. No species without natural energy resistance should have been able to do that. The sword should not have helped, the armor should not have held, and yet the human still stood. Rurk did not rush her. He advanced slowly step by step, forcing her to give ground. Each step was measured, each breath controlled. Veilrix backed away, spear held ready. She had longer reach, better weapons, and more experience, or she should have. And yet she found herself reacting. Rurk suddenly accelerated. One moment he was walking, the next he was sprinting. Veilrix thrust the spear toward his chest. He swerved inside the line of attack, blade flashing up to strike the spear shaft. The impact rang out loud. The spear vibrated violently in Veilrix's hands. Her suit dampened most of it, but not all. She adjusted her grip, barely avoiding losing the weapon. Rurk followed with a short, sharp strike aimed at her armor's shoulder seam. It was not strong enough to pierce, but it forced her to turn, disrupting her balance. Veilrix jumped back, boots scraping. She felt heat building in her muscles now. Real effort. The human pressed again, blade cutting through the air in clean arcs. His movements were not flashy. No wasted motion. Each strike was placed where her armor joints or sensors might be stressed. Veilrix blocked with the spear, metal clashing against metal. She countered with a sweeping strike meant to knock him off his feet. Rurk leapt, clearing the spear by centimeters. He landed hard, rolled, and came up inside her reach once more. Veilrix growled softly, an old Cathari sound of frustration. She activated the spear's charge setting and slammed the butt into the platform, sending a brief shockwave outward. The move forced space between them. Rurk staggered back this time, his boots sliding. For a moment, both champions paused. The arena was no longer quiet. Murmurs spread through the human seating area. Alien observers leaned forward. Data drones shifted positions to capture every angle. Veilrix took a breath and reviewed her situation. Her armor integrity was still high. Her weapons were functioning. By all technical measures, she had the advantage, but the fight was not going the way it should. She looked at Rurk again. His armor showed scorch marks and shallow cuts. His breathing was heavier now. Blood seeped from a thin line near his eyebrow, running down toward his eye. And yet his posture remained steady. He wiped the blood away with the back of his glove without looking away from her. Veilrix spoke again, voice low. "You are injured. You should consider surrender." Rurk shook his head once. "Not yet." "There is no shame in losing to a superior opponent," she said, more sharply than intended. Rurk met her gaze. "That's not how humans see it." Before she could respond, he charged again. This time, Veilrix met him head-on. Spear and sword clashed in a rapid exchange. She struck high, then low, then high again. Rurk blocked, deflected, and dodged, sometimes barely. One of her strikes slipped past his guard and slammed into his side. The impact lifted him off his feet and threw him across the platform. He hit hard and rolled, coming to rest on his back. The arena gasped. Veilrix stood tall, spear leveled at him. This was it, a clean ending. "Yield," she said. Rurk lay still for a moment. His chest rose and fell quickly. The pain response in his body must have been screaming now. Veilrix knew that level of damage would stop most species. Slowly, Rurk rolled onto his side, then onto his knees. Veilrix frowned. Her visor flashed a medical estimate based on visible data. Damage level severe by baseline standards, expected response, incapacitation. Rourke pushed himself to his feet using the sword as support. His movements were slower now but still controlled. His eyes were sharp. "You hit hard," he said. "I'll give you that." Veilrix felt a strange chill. "You should not be standing," she said quietly. Rourke shrugged one shoulder, wincing. "Probably true." He raised the sword again. Veilrix felt her confidence crack just slightly. She had trained all her life to fight the strongest warriors in the Dominion. None of them fought like this. None of them kept moving simply because stopping was not an option. Rourke did not fight to dominate. He fought to endure. As they faced each other again, Veilrix realized something important and unsettling. This duel was not a test of strength or technology. It was a test of how much pain a warrior was willing to accept to achieve victory. And humans, it seemed, had a very different answer to that question. The distance between Veilrix and the human closed again, but now it felt different. Before, Veilrix had seen the fight as a task, a challenge to be completed. Now it felt like a problem that refused to follow rules. Rourke stood with blood on his face and damage across his armor, yet his eyes were clear. His breathing was rougher, but his stance was still solid. Every movement showed control held together by will. Veilrix tightened her grip on the spear. She attacked first again, but this time there was no testing strike. She moved with full intent, spear tip flashing toward Rourke's center mass, then shifting suddenly toward his neck. It was a lethal pattern, one meant to overwhelm defenses. Rourke reacted late again, but not enough. He twisted, letting the spear skim past his shoulder and stepped inside her reach. His sword struck the spear shaft near her hands, then slid down toward her grip. Sparks jumped as metal scraped metal. Veilrix felt the vibration shoot up her arms. She pulled back sharply and spun the spear, forcing space. Rourke retreated one step, then another, then stopped. He was smiling now. It was small and tired, but it was real. Veilrix stared at him. "Why are you smiling?" Rourke wiped blood from his mouth with his thumb. "Because now I know something." Veilrix did not like the sound of that. He shifted his stance slightly, blade angled differently now. His movements changed, not faster, but more certain, as if something had clicked into place. Veilrix felt her instincts warn her. They clashed again. This time, Rourke did not rush in blindly. He waited for her strike, then stepped aside at the last moment, letting the spear pass close. He countered with a short slash toward her armor's sensor cluster. Veilrix blocked just in time. The blade scraped her armor, leaving a mark. No damage, but too close. She countered with a kick aimed at his knee. Rourke jumped back, but not far enough. Her boot clipped his leg, and he stumbled. Veilrix followed instantly, spear driving forward. Rourke fell backward, rolling to avoid the thrust. The spear struck the platform where his chest had been moments before, leaving a shallow dent. He rolled to his feet again, slower this time. Veilrix pressed the attack. Strike after strike forced him back. The human blocked and dodged, but his movements were losing speed. His left arm shook slightly when he raised the sword. Good, Veilrix thought. He is reaching his limit. She struck low, then high, then drove the spear butt toward his chest with all her strength. The impact hit hard. Rourke flew backward and slammed into the arena barrier. The shield flared bright blue as it absorbed the force. He bounced off and collapsed to one knee. This time the arena did not gasp. It went quiet. Veilrix stepped forward, spear leveled at his chest. "Enough," she said. "You have proven courage. Do not waste your life." Rourke stayed on one knee, head lowered. His sword tip rested on the floor, supporting his weight. Blood dripped from his nose onto the platform. For a long moment, Veilrix thought he might finally surrender. Then he laughed. It was quiet and rough, but it was laughter. Veilrix froze. "What is funny?" Rourke lifted his head. His eyes met hers, bright with pain and something else, determination, sharp and unbroken. "You think this is the worst I've felt," he said. Veilrix frowned. "You are badly injured." "Yes," he agreed, "but not finished." He pushed himself up again. Veilrix felt something twist in her chest. Her visor flashed more warnings. Opponent pain response suppressed. Adrenal response extreme. Behavior escalating beyond baseline survival norms. What does that even mean? She thought. Rourke took a deep breath, then another. His shoulders rose and fell. He rolled his neck once as if loosening stiff muscles. "You aliens," he said, voice steady despite everything, "you fight to avoid pain." Veilrix lifted her spear slightly. "Pain is a signal of damage. Ignoring it is foolish. Rourke nodded. Sure, but on Earth, pain is also a teacher. He stepped forward. Veilrix struck. Rourke did not dodge. The spear hit his shoulder squarely, driving him sideways. Armor cracked. The impact should have dropped him. Instead, Rourke grabbed the spear shaft again, teeth clenched, a raw sound escaping his throat. Veilrix felt genuine shock this time. The spear's edge cut into his armor and flesh. Blood ran freely now. Warning lights flared in her visor. Opponent injury critical. And still he held on. Using the spear as leverage, Rourke pulled himself closer. Veilrix tried to wrench it free, but his grip was locked tight, fingers shaking but unyielding. He drove his shoulder into her chest plate. Veilrix staggered back one step. Rourke followed, striking with the sword in a short, brutal arc. The blade hit her armor at the seam near her ribs, not a killing blow, but the armor buckled slightly. Her suit alarm sounded. Veilrix hissed in pain. She jumped back and tore the spear free, retreating several steps. Her breathing was fast now. She stared at Rourke. He stood hunched, blood soaking one side of his armor, his left arm hanging lower than before. His face was pale. His breaths came hard and fast. And yet he still advanced. Veilrix had faced berserkers before, warriors driven mad by chemicals or implants. This was different. Rourke was fully aware he was choosing this. She felt something unfamiliar creep into her thoughts, fear, not of dying, but of not understanding. She switched her spear to a higher power setting. The glow along its edge brightened. "If you continue," she said, voice tight, "you will die." Rourke stopped a few steps away. He looked at her, really looked, as if seeing her for the first time not as an enemy, but as a person. "Maybe," he said, "but not today." He raised his sword again. Veilrix attacked with everything she had. The spear became a blur of motion. She struck high, low, feinted, reversed, and drove forward relentlessly. Each strike was precise and powerful. Rourke blocked some. Others slipped through. He was cut across the thigh. He stumbled, recovered, and kept moving. A strike caught his side again. He gasped but stayed upright. Veilrix felt her arms begin to tire. How is this possible, she thought. She kicked his injured leg hard. Rourke fell, hitting the ground on his back. Veilrix stepped in, spear aimed at his chest. End it. Before she could strike, Rourke rolled and swept his leg out. Veilrix jumped, barely clearing it. As she landed, Rourke was already moving, pushing himself up and slashing upward. The blade struck her armor near the neck, not deep, but close enough to send a chill through her. Veilrix leapt back again. Both warriors paused, facing each other. The arena was alive now. Humans leaned forward, fists clenched. Alien observers whispered urgently. Council members exchanged looks. This was no longer a simple duel. Veilrix's visor displayed a new line of text, cold and clear. Opponent classification update. Veilrix lowered her spear slightly, eyes never leaving Rourke. For the first time since she had accepted this challenge, she understood something important. Humans were not strong because they ignored pain. They were strong because they had learned to live with it. And Captain Elias Rourke was proving, step by bleeding step, that defeating a human was not about landing the hardest blow. It was about breaking their will. Veilrix looked at the human warrior standing before her, wounded, exhausted, and unyielding. And she realized, with a tight knot forming in her chest, that his will had not even begun to crack. The fight slowed, not because either warrior wished it, but because both bodies were reaching limits. Veilrix stood with her spear lowered slightly, her armor dented and scorched in places she had never allowed an enemy to reach before. Her breathing was heavier now, no longer perfectly controlled. Sweat cooled against her skin beneath the armor. Across from her, Captain Elias Rourke stood like a man held upright by will alone. Blood darkened the front of his armor. One arm hung stiff and low. His steps were uneven. Every breath looked painful. And yet he did not fall. The two warriors faced each other in silence. Around them, the arena felt different. The early confidence, the quiet certainty of a quick end, was gone. The air felt heavy, charged with attention. No one spoke. No one looked away. Veilrix finally broke the silence. "You should not be able to continue," she said, her voice no longer sharp but confused. "Your body is failing." Rourke took a slow breath. "Yeah," he said, "it usually does that." Veilrix frowned. "Then why?" He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Because stopping doesn't always mean living." That answer stayed with her. She adjusted her stance and raised the spear again, but she did not attack right away. Instead, she watched him closely. His movements were slower now, but more careful. He no longer rushed in. He waited, measured, conserved what little strength he had left. He was adapting again. Veilrix realized she had underestimated not just human endurance, but human learning speed. Every exchange had taught him something, and he used those lessons immediately. She attacked again, but with control rather than force. A quick thrust toward his shoulder, then a sharp pullback. Rourke moved aside barely and countered with a short strike meant to test her balance. She blocked easily. They circled each other, both aware that the next few moments could decide everything. Veilrix changed her approach. Instead of pressing the attack, she began to retreat slowly, drawing him forward. She wanted him to chase, to overextend. Rourke followed, but cautiously. His eyes flicked to the edges of the arena, then back to her. He did not rush. Smart, she thought. She feinted left, then struck right. Rourke raised his sword to block, but the angle was wrong. The spear slipped past his guard and struck his chest armor, cracking it further. He staggered back, gasping. Veilrix stepped in, ready to finish, then she hesitated. Something about the moment felt wrong. Rourke did not panic. He did not flail. Instead, he let himself fall backward, rolling with the impact to reduce damage. It was a controlled fall, Taut practiced. He came up on one knee again, always on one knee, Veilrix thought, always ready to rise. She attacked again, faster now, forcing him to block repeatedly. Each strike drained more of his strength. His sword arm shook badly now. His breathing was ragged. This was it. She could feel it. She drove the spear forward with full force, aiming to knock him flat and end the duel. Rourke met the strike head-on. He caught the spear shaft again. This time his hands were slick with blood. His grip should not have held, but it did. Veilrix shouted in frustration and tried to pull away. Rourke leaned into the weapon, using his full weight. Pain twisted his face, but he did not release it. He stepped forward and slammed his head into her chest plate. The impact stunned her. Veilrix stumbled back, momentarily disoriented. Rourke followed, striking her armor again with the sword. The blow was weak by normal standards, but it landed exactly where her armor had already been damaged. Her suit screamed a warning. Armor integrity compromised. Veilrix jumped back, heart racing. This had never happened to her before. She had trained her entire life to avoid damage like this, to control fights, to end them cleanly. And yet here she was, damaged, tired, and facing a human who should have been unconscious long ago. Rourke swayed slightly, then steadied himself. He planted his feet and took a deep breath, drawing strength from somewhere Veilrix could not see. She noticed something else now. Every time he took a heavy hit, every time pain should have stopped him, he slowed, but then adjusted, changed his stance, changed his timing. Pain was not breaking him, it was shaping him. Veilrix felt a strange respect forming, uninvited and unwelcome. She lowered her spear just a little. "On my world," she said slowly, "warriors are taught to fight clean, to end battles quickly, to avoid unnecessary reminder of weakness." Rourke blinked. "Pain?" "Yes," he nodded. "On Earth, pain means you're still alive." Before she could respond, he moved again, not forward, sideways. He changed direction suddenly, limping but fast enough to surprise her. He swung low, aiming for her leg. Veilrix blocked, but the impact jolted her badly. Rourke followed with a shove that forced her back. She nearly lost her footing. That was enough. Veilrix stepped away and raised her spear high. The weapon's energy field brightened, humming louder now. She was done holding back. "This ends now," she said. Rourke looked at the glowing spear, then back at her. His face was pale, his jaw clenched. "Good," he said. "I was hoping you'd stop being careful." Veilrix attacked with full force. The spear struck like lightning. Each blow carried power meant to end the fight. Rourke blocked what he could, dodged what he could not. His movements were rough now, driven by instinct and training layered over pain. A strike caught his side and lifted him off his feet again. He crashed to the floor, sliding several meters before stopping. Veilrix advanced, spear aimed at his chest. "Yield," she said again, louder now. "This is over." Rourke lay still for a moment, then his hand moved. He rolled onto his side, coughing, and forced himself up again, slowly, painfully. Veilrix felt disbelief wash over her. "Why won't you stay down?" she thought. Rourke stood barely. His sword trembled in his hand. His vision blurred, but he focused anyway. "Because," he said, voice hoarse, "if I fall, my people lose." Veilrix froze. She saw it then, not pride, not anger, responsibility. He was not fighting for himself. He was fighting because losing meant consequences far beyond this arena. She remembered the humans watching behind the glass. The children. The quiet hope. Rourke took a step forward, then another. Veilrix hesitated. That hesitation cost her. Rourke surged forward suddenly, faster than she expected from a broken body. He slipped inside her reach again and slammed his shoulder into her damaged armor. The force knocked the wind from her. He struck with the sword again, this time driving it hard into the weakened section of her chest plate. The armor cracked. Veilrix cried out and stumbled back, shock flooding her system. Her suit alarms blared. She fell to one knee. The arena exploded into noise. Humans shouted. Aliens gasped. Council observers leaned forward. Veilrix looked up at Rurk from the ground. He stood over her, breathing hard, blood dripping from his armor, sword raised but shaking. He could finish it. For a long moment, neither moved. Rurk's eyes met hers. He did not strike. Instead, he lowered the sword slightly, just enough to show restraint. Veilrix stared at him, chest tight, not from pain, but from understanding. This human was not unstoppable. He was breakable, but he refused to break. And that refusal, born from pain, purpose, and endurance, was more powerful than any weapon she carried. Veilrix slowly rose to her feet, spear still in hand, heart pounding. The fight was not over, but something fundamental had changed. She was no longer fighting a weak species. She was fighting humanity, and she was no longer certain she could win. Veilrix stood unsteady, her chest plate cracked and sparking softly. Pain spread through her ribs with every breath. She had been wounded before, but never like this, never by someone who should have fallen long ago. Across from her, Captain Elias Rurk stood swaying, sword still in hand. His body looked close to collapse. Blood ran freely now, soaking into the floor beneath his boots. His face was pale, his jaw tight. Both warriors were near the edge. The arena was loud now. Humans shouted encouragement. Alien voices murmured in shock. The council observers watched in complete silence. Veilrix raised her spear again, though her arms felt heavy. "You could have finished it," she said. "Why didn't you?" Rurk swallowed. "Because this isn't about killing you." "That is not how duels work," Veilrix replied. "It is for us," he said simply. She studied him, really studied him, for the first time not as an opponent, but as a being. His armor was simple and broken. His weapon was old and plain. There was nothing impressive about him on the surface. And yet everything about him spoke of refusal, refusal to quit, refusal to accept defeat, refusal to give up responsibility. Veilrix felt something shift inside her chest. She attacked again, not with rage, not with fear, with precision. The spear moved fast, cutting through the air toward Rurk's center. He raised his sword to block, but his timing was off. The spear struck his shoulder hard, driving him sideways. He crashed to the floor, sliding across the platform. This time he did not rise immediately. The noise in the arena faltered. Veilrix approached slowly, spear leveled, heart pounding. She watched his chest, waiting for movement. Rurk coughed and rolled onto his back. His eyes were half closed. His sword lay a short distance away. Veilrix stopped a few steps from him. "This ends now," she said quietly. "Yield." Rurk breathed hard, his vision blurred. His limbs felt distant, heavy. Every part of him screamed to stop, and yet somewhere deep inside another voice spoke. "Get up." He rolled onto his side and pushed himself up with shaking arms. Pain flared white-hot through his body, but he forced it down piece by piece. He rose to one knee. Veilrix stared. "You are destroying yourself," she said. Rurk looked up at her. His eyes were tired but steady. "Humans do that sometimes," he said, "when it matters." He reached for his sword. Veilrix felt something tighten in her throat. She struck before he could stand fully. The spear hit his side again, sending him tumbling across the floor. He slammed into the barrier, the shield flaring bright. This time he did not roll back. He stayed down. The arena went quiet. Veilrix stood over him, breathing hard, spear shaking in her hands. Her visor showed the truth in cold numbers. Opponent condition, critical. Likelihood of continued combat, minimal. She should finish it. That was the rule. She raised the spear. Then she hesitated. She remembered his words, "If I fall, my people lose." She remembered the humans behind the glass, their silent hope, their belief that this broken man would somehow stand again. Veilrix lowered the spear slightly. "Captain Rurk," she said, loud enough for the arena to hear. "You have fought with honor. Yield, and I will accept." Rurk did not answer. She waited. Seconds passed. Then slowly, painfully, his hand moved. He pushed himself up again. A wave of shock rolled through the arena. Veilrix felt it hit her like a blow. "Why?" she thought. "Why won't you stop?" Rurk rose to one knee, then staggered to his feet, using the barrier for support. His sword remained on the floor behind him. He faced her empty-handed. "I can't," he said softly. Veilrix felt anger flare. "You will die." "Maybe," he replied, "but I won't surrender." She stared at him. He was no longer attacking, no longer even holding a weapon. He was simply standing, choosing to stand. Veilrix's training screamed at her to strike, to end this, to win. But something else spoke louder. She had fought warriors who loved battle, warriors who loved victory, warriors who feared defeat. She had never fought someone who accepted pain, loss, and death as prices already paid. She lowered the spear further. "Why?" she asked again, almost pleading now. "Why do you keep rising?" Rourke met her eyes. "Because if we don't," he said, "no one else will." The words struck deeper than any blade. Veilrix felt her certainty crumble. She saw her own reflection in his eyes, not as a champion, not as a conqueror, but as a test. A wall humanity refused to stop pushing against. Her grip loosened. Rourke took one step forward, then another. Each step looked like it might be his last. Veilrix realized something terrifying. If she struck him down now, she would win the duel. But she would lose something else. Respect, truth, understanding. She made her choice. Veilrix dropped her spear. The sound echoed through the arena. Gasps filled the air. Rourke stopped, confused. "What?" Veilrix straightened, pain flaring in her ribs, and lifted her chin. "I concede this exchange," she said clearly. "Not the duel, not yet, but this moment." The council observers erupted into quiet discussion. Rules flashed across their screens. This had never happened before. Rourke swayed, barely staying upright. "Why?" Veilrix stepped closer, unarmed now. "Because I need to understand you," she said, "and I cannot do that if I kill you." Rourke looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded once. "Fair." He took another step, and his legs gave out. He collapsed forward. Veilrix caught him. The impact sent pain through her injured chest, but she held him anyway. The human was lighter than she expected. Medics began shouting. Drones descended. Council officials argued loudly. Veilrix lowered Rourke carefully to the floor and stood again, raising her hands. "The duel is not finished," she said, "but neither is he." The council speaker stood. "Under council law," it announced, "a temporary halt may be declared if both champions are incapable of immediate combat." The speaker paused. "Champion Veilrix has disarmed herself. The human champion has collapsed. A halt is granted." The arena erupted. Human medics rushed forward, lifting Rourke onto a stretcher. As they worked, his eyes fluttered open briefly. He looked at Veilrix. She met his gaze. "You're stubborn," she said. He smiled weakly. "You noticed." Then he lost consciousness. Veilrix watched him carried away, her heart heavy and conflicted. She had not lost. She had not won. But for the first time in her life, she felt something new. Respect mixed with doubt. If one human could endure this much, fight this hard, refuse to fall. What would happen if humanity truly decided it must not lose? Veilrix picked up her spear slowly. The duel would continue. But now she understood the truth. She was no longer testing a warrior. She was testing the limits of a species. And she was no longer certain those limits existed. Human medics moved quickly around Captain Elias Rourke, their voices calm, their hands steady. Lights scanned his body. Soft alarms marked damage and recovery. Machines assisted, but it was clear that much of his survival depended on the human body itself. Stubborn, resilient, still fighting even while unconscious. Veilrix stood at the edge of the bay, watched closely by council guards. Her armor was partially removed now, revealing bruised skin and wrapped ribs. Pain pulsed with every breath, but she ignored it. Her eyes never left the human on the table. She had expected to feel victory, or at least relief. Instead, she felt unsettled. The council speaker entered the bay, robes flowing softly. "Champion Veilrix," it said, "you requested observation rights during the human's treatment." "Yes," Veilrix replied. "I need to see." "To see what?" the speaker asked. Veilrix did not answer right away. The medic in charge glanced at her. "He's stable," she said. "Barely, most species wouldn't have survived half of this." Veilrix nodded slowly. "I know." Hours passed. Rourke remained unconscious but alive. His body repaired itself with help, bones knitting, organs stabilizing. The medics worked, but they did not rush. They trusted his body to do part of the work. Veilrix watched everything. She saw how humans treated their wounded not as broken tools, but as valued lives. They spoke to him even when he could not hear. They adjusted blankets. One medic paused to rest a hand on his shoulder before leaving. Respect, Veilrix realized, was built into them. Finally, Rourke stirred. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first. He coughed, then winced as pain returned. "You're alive," Veilrix said. Rourke blinked, then turned his head slightly to look at her. "Damn," he muttered. "I was hoping I'd scared you into surrender. Veilrix almost smiled. You did something worse, she said. You made me think. He groaned softly. Sorry about that. She stepped closer. Why did you refuse to strike when you had the chance? Rourke frowned, searching for the memory. Because killing you wouldn't have protected anyone, winning would. Veilrix crossed her arms carefully. In the Dominion, mercy is seen as weakness. Rourke looked at her. On Earth, mercy is how we decide who we want to be after the fight. That answer stayed with her. The Council called both champions back to the arena the next cycle. Both were injured. Both were cleared for limited combat. The rules allowed continuation. The arena was packed. This time the mood was different. No smug confidence. No quiet dismissal of humans. The galaxy was watching now, not to see who would win, but to see what humans truly were. Veilrix entered first, her armor repaired but still marked. Her spear hummed softly. She felt calm, not confident, not afraid, but focused. Rourke entered second. He walked slower than before. His armor was patched, reinforced. His sword was back at his side. He looked thinner somehow, worn down, but his eyes were the same. Steady. They faced each other at the center. You should still withdraw, Veilrix said. Your body is not ready. Rourke shrugged slightly. Neither is yours, she nodded. True. The council speaker raised its hands. This duel resumes. Final outcome will be recognized. Silence fell. Veilrix moved first, but not to strike. She lowered her spear slightly. I will not underestimate you again. Rourke nodded. Good. They began. The fight was slower now, more careful. Every movement had weight. Every step cost effort. Veilrix attacked with precision, not speed. She aimed to control space, to guide Rourke where she wanted him. Rourke responded with patience, blocking and stepping aside rather than charging in. They circled. Rourke struck first this time, a controlled slash meant to test her guard. She blocked easily and countered, driving him back a step. Pain flared in her ribs. Pain flared in his leg. Neither stopped. They fought like equals now, not predator and prey, not superior and inferior, warriors. Veilrix noticed something as the fight continued. Rourke was adapting again, but so was she. She adjusted her timing to his pain-limited movements. He adjusted his stance to her injuries, each learned from the other. The fight became a conversation written in motion, a strike, a block, a pause, a shift. Rourke stumbled once, catching himself on his sword. Veilrix could have ended it then. She didn't. She waited. He straightened, breathing hard. You had me. Yes, she agreed. Why didn't you take it? Veilrix answered honestly. Because victory that teaches nothing is empty. Rourke nodded. Fair. They clashed again. This time, Veilrix used a risky move, overcommitting, leaving her side open. Rourke reacted instantly, stepping in and driving his shoulder toward her weak point. She expected it. She twisted, letting the impact slide, and hooked the spear behind his leg. With a sharp pull, she brought him down hard. Rourke hit the floor, wind knocked from his lungs. Veilrix stood over him, spear aimed at his chest. The arena held its breath. Yield, she said. Rourke lay there, chest rising and falling. He stared up at her, pain etched into every line of his face. Then he shook his head. No! Veilrix closed her eyes briefly. She reversed the spear and struck not his chest, but the floor beside his head. The impact cracked the platform. I will not kill you, she said loudly, but I will end this. She stepped back and lowered the spear. I concede. The arena exploded. Rourke stared at her in disbelief. What? Veilrix turned to the council. The human has proven his claim. Humanity has earned its right. The council erupted into argument. Data flashed. Protocols were reviewed. Finally, the speaker raised its hands. The duel is concluded, it announced. By concession of champion Veilrix, the disputed zone remains under human control. Human cheers shook the arena. Rourke struggled to sit up, stunned. You didn't have to do that. Veilrix looked down at him. Yes, I did. Why? She considered her answer carefully. Because if the Dominion pushes humanity, she said, it will not face surrender. She met his eyes. It will face extinction or something close to it. Rourke was silent. Veilrix extended a hand. After a moment, he took it. She pulled him to his feet. The gesture was seen across the galaxy. Later, as ships departed and reports were sent, Veilrix recorded her official statement to the Dominion. Humans are not weak, she said. They are not strong in the way we understand. They are adaptive, enduring, and driven by responsibility rather than dominance. She paused. If challenged, they will not stop. She ended the report with a warning. Do not force them to choose survival over peace. Veilrix left the station changed. Rourke recovered slowly, surrounded by people who believed in him, and across the galaxy a new truth spread. Humanity did not need to conquer the stars. The stars only needed to understand what happened when humans decided they must not lose. It changed quietly, in reports and whispers, in reclassified files and careful words spoken behind closed doors. Veilrix returned to the Cathari Dominion aboard a silent cruiser. She stood alone in the observation chamber, watching stars slide past. Her ribs still ached. Her armor had been repaired, but she did not wear it now. She did not feel like a champion. She felt like a witness. When she arrived, the High Council summoned her immediately. The chamber was vast, carved from dark stone and light metal. Symbols of past victories lined the walls. Warriors who had crushed enemies, expanded borders, enforced Dominion will. Veilrix stood at the center, unarmed. "Champion Veilrix," the High Strategist said, "you conceded a duel you could have won. Explain." Veilrix lifted her head. "I could not have won," she said calmly. "Not in the way that matters." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "The human was broken," another voice said. "Injured beyond reason." "Yes," Veilrix agreed, and still he stood. The council demanded details. Veilrix gave them everything, not just numbers and damage reports, but behavior, choices, refusals. "He did not fight to defeat me," she said. "He fought so his people would not lose. That difference matters." The High Strategist narrowed its eyes. "All species fight for survival." "No," Veilrix replied. "Most fight to avoid death. Humans fight to protect meaning, territory, future, each other." Silence followed. "Recommend action," the strategist finally said. Veilrix did not hesitate. "Leave them alone." The chamber erupted. "Impossible. They are expanding. They are unpredictable." Veilrix raised her voice. "Yes, they are all of those things. And if pressed, they will endure what others cannot. They will adapt. They will suffer, and they will not stop." She looked around the chamber. "I fought one human," she said. "One, and it cost me certainty, pride, and nearly my life. If we fight all of them, we will win battles." She paused. "And lose the war that follows." The council dismissed her without decision, but seeds had been planted. On Earth, Captain Elias Rourke stood on a quiet hillside outside a military medical complex. He leaned on a railing, looking out over green fields and distant mountains. His body was healing slowly. Some injuries would never fully fade. He did not mind. Behind him, Envoy Halden approached. "You're cleared for limited duty," he said. Rourke nodded. "Good. You've been offered promotion." Rourke smiled faintly. "I figured. And I declined." Halden raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because I didn't win alone," Rourke said, "and because I'm not done where I am." Halden studied him. "You're becoming a symbol." Rourke looked away. "That's what worries me." Across human space, news of the duel spread, not as propaganda, not as boastful victory, as a lesson. Humans watched recordings of Rourke standing again and again, bloodied but unbroken. They saw Veilrix drop her spear. They saw the hand extended instead of the killing blow. The message was clear. Humanity did not seek dominance, but it would not accept erasure. Alien worlds took notice. Trade negotiations shifted tone. Military assessments were rewritten. Humans were no longer labeled physically inferior. They were labeled persistent threat, do not provoke. Veilrix watched these changes from afar. She requested reassignment, not to command, but to observe. The council refused at first, then reluctantly allowed it. Veilrix became a liaison. She traveled to neutral stations, border worlds, places where humans and others met. She watched human engineers patch ships with limited tools. She watched human medics treat alien wounded without hesitation. She listened. Humans argued loudly, disagreed openly, and questioned authority constantly. To Veilrix, it looked like chaos, but beneath it all was something solid: connection. When one human fell, another stepped forward. When systems failed, they improvised. When faced with fear, they acknowledged it and moved anyway. Veilrix finally understood. Humans were not fearless, they were fear-capable, and they chose action regardless. Months later, Veilrix and Rourke met again, not in an arena. On a station overlooking a shared trade route where stars moved slowly and peacefully beyond the glass. Rourke walked with a slight limp now. Veilrix noticed. He noticed her careful movements too. "You're healing," he said. "So are you," she replied. They stood side by side in silence for a while. "You could have killed me," Rourke said at last. "Yes." "Why didn't you?" Veilrix considered. "Because if I had, my people would have learned the wrong lesson." Rourke nodded. "And what lesson was the right one?" "That some victories create enemies," she said, "and others create boundaries." Rourke smiled. "That's a very human idea." Veilrix looked at him. I know. A young alien officer approached Veilrix later. Champion, they asked quietly, are humans truly dangerous? Veilrix thought of Rurk standing empty-handed, refusing to surrender. Yes, she said, if cornered, and if not, they will build, she replied, trade, argue, create art, break rules, and help strangers for reasons that make no sense. The officer frowned. That sounds manageable. Veilrix's expression softened. That is how they survive. Years passed, borders held, conflicts cooled before they ignited. And when violence did occur, most species thought twice before involving humans, not because humans were the strongest, but because they were the hardest to finish. In a quiet archive deep in council space, a single file was updated. Species profile, humanity physical capability, moderate technological growth, rapid psychological endurance, extreme strategic trait, refusal to yield. Recommendation, engage diplomatically, avoid forcing survival scenarios. The file ended with a note written by Veilrix herself. They believed they could easily defeat a human warrior. They were wrong. On Earth, Captain Elias Rurk returned to training new recruits. He did not teach them how to win, he taught them how to stand back up. And across the galaxy, whenever a species considered pushing humanity too far, someone remembered the duel. Not the blows, not the blood, but the moment when a broken human stood anyway, and chose not to fall.